Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your creepy co-hosts. I am Casey.
I'm Sam the Damned, and let's get screamin'.
Let's get screaming with today's guest, who has worked on numerous film projects in his over 30-year career, including assistant director and working in promotions for Full Moon Entertainment, now known as Full Moon Features, and also has worked in multiple music departments for a number of films, including one of our favorites, Bubba Ho-Top, and so much more.
Oh, yeah. And I'm in that, too, so...
He's a jack of all trades. We've got Daniel Schweiger joining us in the basement to discuss his expansive career that continues to this day with his OnTheScore interviews with film composers. We are pleased and frightened to welcome Daniel to the show. Daniel, welcome to Screams from the Basement. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, be afraid, be very afraid.
Be very afraid, ladies and gentlemen. And for our audio-only listeners, I'm going to point it out here again. Daniel is rocking an arcade shirt,
Yes.
one of two, I believe you said.
I've got two of them, but they're out there.
They're out there. But yeah, that's kind of how this podcast is going to get started for us, is your work with Full Moon, because we're both big Full Moon fans. We recently talked about arcade in depth on our podcast. And you've worked on a number of projects for Charlie over there at Full Moon, Arcade, Lurking Fear, a bunch of the Puppet Master movies. Kind of walk us through like what your role was with Full Moon and kind of how you got involved in that crazy Charles Band circus.
Well, let's put it this way. My first job ever out of Emerson College in 1988, I think, was working for Trauma,
Yeah.
as I like to call it. And I was ceremoniously fired when I dealt with Luca Brasi, trying to find out where they were shooting war. And at that point, I started cutting movie trailers, not more like TV trailers for stuff like The Saint and all the Bestron movies like Fear. And my boss, Joe Mensa, knew Gary Leva, who knew Charles Band. And Gary is like an amazing DVD extras guy. And a shout out to Justin Beam on that end. And I was very lucky because he knew Charlie and he recommended me to Charlie. So I literally came to LA in, I think, 1989. I just remember it was the summer of Darkman. And I had a job. So I was super lucky walking into essentially doing the promotions at Full Moon. And their office was still off Sunset Boulevard, next to the International House of Prostitution. Boy, you could make movies out about what you saw at that happening out that window. And it was like it was kind of like two floors. I was in the bottom floor, but I quickly learned never to bring liver to lunch. I got complaints about that. I like liver, sorry. And Charlie was great. It really was a family. It was like a total family of people. Charlie and Debbie Dan at the time. His secretary Benna, and it was essentially like a mini studio. And I started, really the first movie I did pretty much when I was there was the trailer for Puppet Master 2. I did all those, those trailers, and would write the bubblegum cards. I helped write the liner notes for the CDs, which kind of got me into a whole other thing. And eventually the company moved to right off San Fernando in the 5, and it became essentially like a mini studio. And it was there that Charlie approached me, saying, "Hey, we got this movie. Albert Pune shot it, and it's like unreleasable. The effects are what you can kind of see in the new release that came out, or worse than the worst episode of Doctor Who you've ever seen. And I love Doctor Who, but man, those special effects." I'm not talking about the Cyberman costumes. I'm talking about the other stuff. And basically he realized that the movie was unreleasable. It made really no kind of sense. And so my mission for basically what it would cost to do the lunch on a Thursday for the Lawnmower Man, which was kind of the big computer movie at that time, was my budget to completely fix this movie. to completely redo all of the special effects and to try to have the story make any kind of sense, which it really just didn't. So it was an amazing opportunity and probably still the best one I've ever had. I mean, Charlie, again, it's very fair to, compare him to Roger Corman because he really gave people a break. He just completely let you alone to do whatever you wanted. Obviously within, the budget. I was doing the video zones at that point. I usually didn't do the main 8-minute segment on the video zone, but I did all of the other stuff, the trailers, the Charlie Spradling things and everything else. So it was kind of like a next big step for me, to do that, essentially to create a movie. And it's, believe me, major films have done this where, you create a movie out of something that's just completely unreleasable. So I worked with a really wonderful, we saw a couple of companies for the money we had, and I ended up working with a really wonderful Canadian company called DHD Postimage. And, I went to Montreal. I came up with a bunch of the visual concepts, like the Chrome Dragon is mine. The big thing, obviously was this kind of, originally was pretty much taken off of the whole light cycle thing in Tron. And, I just, okay, what can I do to kind of make this different? Let's have them fly and again, that's kind of like the most computer animation that's in, I think it's like a minute, which is still a lot given we had no budget to do any of this stuff. And it's still, I still think it's pretty cool. And, the great thing, what was in our favor was that all the stuff with them in the game was shot against a green screen for the most part, except for that whole thing, because Albert shot this simultaneously to Dollman. And so it uses that kind of, I guess it's like a ruined industrial plant. I was never there, but that's the only part in the movie where we really couldn't, chroma key everything out of it. So because they're wearing helmets, you could write anything you wanted to. And I rewrote all the dialogue when they're wearing their helmets, again, to try to make sense. Okay, let's have levels that they have to get through. We completely invented the stuff with the key, the level, all this. Some of it was there, but a lot of it wasn't. I shot a lot of inserts, like when they reveal their arm, that's all inserts, to, again, try to have this movie make any kind of logical sense. And, I worked with Robert Meyer Burnett, who was a tremendous help. I act with him playing myself at Full Moon and Free Enterprise. And Robert Burnett and Peter Billingsley. And it was kind of Peter Billingsley's first, it's, they edited this thing. They got this into shape. But obviously Peter would direct, Couples Resort, I think. But this is kind of Peter Billingsley's first step into making movies. Into trying to fix this movie. So again, given, the obstacles in the budget, I'm still very proud of what came out. And that this is not I will say this release is not the last word on stuff that's going to be happening with Arcade. It's going to be, God bless them. I'm thrilled it's come out over here. And there are very cool things coming up ahead that will, with people, where stuff is being done. I don't know how much I can say. If I die tonight, you'll know what happened.
Charlie came and got
Charlie,
you.
yeah. Charlie's just off screen with a blow dart or something. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we like Casey said, we talked in depth about Arcade just earlier, about a month ago on the podcast.
Wow, cool.
And we were able to find a rip of an old promotional.
You watched the original footage.
Christ.
I watched the updated one, and it's we talked extensively about the differences between the two.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you're not wrong. It's almost incomprehensible.
It makes no sense.
So that. I mean, amazing work on that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, again, it's an amazing. You're essentially what's so cool. You're being given something that's completely broken. How do I fix this on a budget? How do I fix this thing? I mean, again, it went beyond fixing the visual effects. How do I fix the story? How do I make this ending with the suicide thing make any kind of sense?
Yeah.
So again,
I watched that original ending before all the changes that you guys made, just to compare it to what came out on the video release, and
Mm-hmm.
I watched them literally like back to back, and it's crazy how much of like you said, Peter Billingsley's dialogue especially changes in terms of like what his character's talking about. Like he's talking about like he at one point he like expresses that, oh, this is real, versus the original version where he says like he's like trying to be a badass or something, right? Is that what he's
there's
Oh God, I
there's
don't
some
know. I don't
quippy
even.
remark that makes no sense. It's
yeah,
crazy.
instead
Yeah.
of like an actual character moment that was added.
Yeah.
Completely rewritten. Anything, like even when they would turn their head to the side, we would rewrite the dialogue. And again, what was cool about, again, it's a really beautifully shot movie.
Yeah.
George Morading did such a great job on it. Again, you have this blue screen, so let's key in the new graphics of Arcade. So again, all of this stuff, like we're taking still frames to put new graphics in. Like here's the life, all of this stuff to have this make sense.
Yeah. So you also another one that we kind of have, both Casey and I have watched recently, is Lurking Fear, which you worked on with Courtney Joyner, who's a friend of the show. That was an adaptation of Lovecraft, and you were working with Jeffrey Combs and Ashley Lawrence. Like, what was it like working on that production? What was yeah.
I didn't work in the actual movie. It was nowhere near the scene, nowhere near the problems that Arcade had. And again, shout out, Courtney's a great guy, just an amazing person, an incredible, one of the great audio commentators, and just like a fountain of information. Lurking Fear had some story issues that Charlie wanted to fix, and Courtney as well. And so basically, came up with ideas to again have the story make sense. Again, this is the kind of stuff that I'm not Peter Bogdanovich, although I actually played him for about 5 seconds in an True Hollywood Story thing, which I have a photo of when I had hair. It's like trying to with the Yugoslavian thing. It's like, how do you? Obviously, that wasn't happening with the Lurking Fear. But again, like we added stuff. Like there's the scene where the priest is talking to the monster, and like the monster's listening to him. That was like one of the second. It's stuff that happens in big films where you're just shooting additional stuff to have the story make sense. There's like we shot some additional cave scenes. Like there's a shot with Dave Parker and Bob and me. We're all wearing the mask, and like he's eating one of the. You can totally see that in the movie. And one of the great things about that is that I got to do a whole concept trailer for that movie. That's like one of the, and I think it's on YouTube, where you see like the hands digging through the graveyard. And then it comes up out of the graveyard. That's a completely miniature set. And I came up with the idea, to how you do that. It's the same thing. Like I came up with the trailer for Subspecies 2 with the revolving bloodstone. And it's like, okay, let's key in images from the film in the bloodstone. And I came up with the Night Has Fangs, I think is my tagline. I mean, again, I'm part of a whole bunch of people, creating stuff for Full Moon. But again, that was just a whole other thing. Charlie, like, hey, Charlie, I got an idea for like an original trailer. Let's do, yeah, sure. Go ahead and do it, and it was awesome. It's such an awesome place to work, and I really have to stress that, Charlie really is a pioneer, with Mita and Halloween, he really helped give rise to VHS itself and the whole home video experience. And Full Moon, but it's now what it is. But back in the day, they were trying to make quality movies direct to video, and this is really a first. This really had not been done at this kind of level, where you're releasing 1 to 2 movies a month, and it's all completely original content, and it's with really good technical people making these cool little movies. Some of them were goofy, but there were a lot of them that were really good.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were terrific, like Pit and the Pendulum.
Honestly, Subspecies 2 might be my favorite vampire movie of the 90s. I think it's incredible. It's so good.
Yeah, Ted is amazing. I love Ted. He's incredible. Even Dragon World is great.
Yeah.
I mean, they were making high quality movies. that really showed, this was obviously before the days of streamers. Obviously, you had television movies being made, but this kind of showed you how you could do the stuff direct to video right at the beginning of all of this,
Yeah.
when they were making stuff that cost money, some kind of
Yeah.
money. And
Yeah.
now it's like, I haven't watched this stuff in a while. That's all I can tell you. But
Well,
a long while.
Well,
but,
like we've talked about a lot on our show is whenever we talk about a full moon movie, especially we always talk about the Video Zone, and that feels like something way ahead of its time because like these are straight to video movies.
Yeah.
But also even theatrical movies were barely putting anything like after the credits, maybe like a music video or something like that. But you guys were putting together like 20-minute, 30-minute long making ofs. Like how, like, can you walk us through the process of like putting together a Video Zone?
Charlie, again, obviously is a super big comic book fan. I mean, one of the best things I ever got to do when I went to Jack Kirby's house and I did a whole interview with Jack and Roz, and it is incredible. I mean, oh my God, I'm a Marvel zombie, and again, you can see that Charlie was probably a fan of the Merry Marvel Marching Society, you know, because when you look at it, Video Zones for the Merry Marvel Marching Society, but done on video, where you're generating a fan club. I don't really think any kind of studios had this kind of thing going on, where you were really trying to create studios had fans, but you never had like a kind of feeling of fans, like where you rent a video, and to create this kind of sense of community. What the Video Zone basically, someone else would essentially do the bulk of the making of, which usually ran for 9 minutes. And then I would essentially do the rest. Like I would do like segments on David Allen. I would do I did like the Puppet Master action figure commercial with them in the little house. I do like all the stuff with Charlie Spradling. I do interviews with the actors, like that were apart from the Video Zones themselves. And I'll never forget that when, this is all when back in the day, now you do all this stuff in your home computer, but back in the day you would go to a post-production house. And I'll never forget doing the Video Zone for Transfers 3, falling asleep, and when I woke up, the LA riots had happened. It's like, why does the air smell funny? And they actually ransacked the offices of Full Moon. When they had, I think it's probably one of the reasons they moved off at Sunset is when the offices were ransacked by the rioters. But yeah, I mean, like, it was great with the trailers is that, I would like do all these kind of like, I would do voices for the trailers. I get the actors to come in and do loop for the trailers, because the trailers often, the movie hadn't remotely been, put together yet. So, you're, and in an interesting way, Stuart Gordon became one of my dearest friends and really changed my life when I was at Full Moon. It's like he brought in Pit and the Pendulum, which in my opinion is the best Full Moon movie ever made. And said, "Oh, can you put some music over this these sequences at the end of the movie?" And it's like, okay, I know what to do here. Lion in the Winter. And that kind of began my whole other career, which I've been doing for about 30 years and a whole bunch of other stuff, is I started doing temp tracking. And when I was at Full Moon, when things were happening, I temped the Sandlot at full, like on 3/4 inch. I had like Graham Revell came in to do demos for Sliver. So I was kind of getting into this whole temp tracking thing. So unfortunately, when Full Moon as I knew it fell apart, I had this whole other ability that I was able to jump into. And, I know how much people love the stories of people, starving to the point of near death, eating top ramen in their apartment before they get their big break. But I'm not that kind of guy, because my dad was the hotel manager. He managed some really amazing hotels in New York. And I like to have a paycheck and to eat and to live nicely. And I was set to direct. We had Arcade, basically a plot for Arcade 2 that was going to happen. But essentially the entire thing collapsed. And at that point I had to make a living. And then I got into music editing. Again, I do a lot of different, I act, I was in Bubba Ho-Tep and Free Enterprise. That was Bob Burnett's kind of little tribute to Full Moon. It was called Full Eclipse in that. But again, it's a bummer. I would have loved to have directed. I was supposed to play like the band leader in Bad Channels at one point, and then I had to go on a trip or something happened. You can tell by my whole Eddie Deason vibe that I've got going. But it was an amazing place to work. I mean, it was amazing. Like, hey, it's a slow day. I think I'm just going to walk over to the stage and watch David Allen animate. Or I'm going to go and see, all the makeup guys casting molds, or, see them shooting the primevals.
Yeah.
Which holds a record for, I think, unless they somehow fix the fall of the Roman Empire from like 1936 or something. It's like, that's the record for like the longest, And ironically, I think the last job I ever did there was doing the sizzle reel for the primevals, which you can see on the new Blu-ray that Daniel Griffith did an amazing job with, and that's one of the extras where I temp tracked it with Outbreak, because everyone temp tracked with Outbreak. So that was kind of like the last thing I did there. But like, you get to see Julius, you get to say hi to Margot Kidder, who's doing the Jack and the Beanstalk movie. I'm a big old movie geek, so for me, I was in hog heaven.
Yeah.
You get to go to the Universal back lot. Hey, there's Walter Gotell hanging out as Courtney is directing Puppet Master 3. I mean, that's pretty damn cool in my book, and it really showed you what Charlie was going for, and like really cool quality productions. And even like Puppet Master 4 had these amazing Bunraku puppets. I mean, to see that, with the demon god guy full scale.
Yeah.
Like, wow, man. I mean, if the set for Dr. Mordred, oh my God, that was amazing. Incredible set.
Yeah.
You go to the Museum of Natural History, and they're shooting Dr. Mordred in the dinosaur circular, room.
Got that poster literally right over my shoulder here. I love that movie.
Movie. I love that movie. And again, hey, there's Severin Darden there and it's like, oh my God, Severin Darden, So for me, I was just in hog heaven. They had a whole music division. And again, I love the songs in Arcade. Pat Siciliano and Dean Chichtel, who passed away, unfortunately, they did such a great job finding a lot of those songs. And the thing, that I love about Arcade is that, obviously watching it recently, it's very different from the other Full Moon movies. It really has its own, it's really kind of creepy. That's one thing that really struck me, watching it again.
Yeah.
Is how creepy. And again, I cannot give enough credit to Alan Howarth, who did both the sound effects and the score. Because that was like kind of like, obviously I was such a big fan of Alan and John's work as it was. And it's like, oh my God, this is like an amazing opportunity. I can get Alan to do the sound effects. I can get him to do the score. And the score came out like about 2 years ago as part of a compilation. And I'm really super proud of, what a lot of people, pulled together to, make that movie happen.
Yeah, we likened it to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, especially of how it feels so different from any other Full Moon movie, where it feels like instead of Freddy Krueger killing off these teenagers, it's a video game killing off these teenagers.
Yeah, and and again, I have to, again, even though one of my giant regrets is that I gave Albert, like when you made Captain America, what were you thinking, man? But he just kind of laughed it off. But Albert was a really lovely guy, and again, but there's a lot of cool stuff in that movie that he shot, and again, George so beautifully shot, and Albert was a really great guy. He made a lot of stuff, man. But he got really good performances, and you look at the cast, like Peter Billingsley, Seth Green, there are a lot of John Delancey, Norbert Weiser.
Yeah.
A lot of great people are in that movie. And again, it just feels weird and dreamlike, and that's there, that is there, in the footage.
Absolutely. So we have to talk about post Full Moon stuff too, because you moved into music production. You're doing a lot of stuff with that. You also have your own site OnTheScore where you interview film composers. How did that start? When did that kind of start up? And tell us a little bit about that.
I've got two sites. I've got OnTheScore.com, which is my internet site, which shows all the kind of stuff I do, and that's kind of like print interviews. The video cast that I've been doing really since pandemic is called Film Music Live, and that's on that's on YouTube. We have Jeff Russo coming on in September for Alien Earth.
Oh, nice.
I was living in New York, and because again, I kind of grew up in New York. My dad managed a lot of amazing hotels like the St. Regis and site of the Godfather murders, and I went to school at Emerson, and I started writing. The first thing I ever got professionally published was in the Avengers Chronicles, which is this kind of like Fantagraphics thing. Like George Perez did the art of the first thing I ever had professionally published. It was called Yellow Jacket's Personal Problems, and from there, I wrote for this really cool thing that Brad Balfour, who wrote for Heavy Metal, did called the New York Review of Records, and I started reviewing soundtracks. This is probably back in 1988. I was writing for Fangoria, for Toxic Horror Fan. I mean, as a kid, the Playboy of genre magazines, the gold standard was Cinefantastic. I mean, one of the first things I ever got was the Primevals issue. And it's like, if I can write for Cinefantastic, I have made it. And I eventually did. And through that, I really started writing a lot about film music. And, I became friendly with a lot of composers. I got into it when the only guy I never got to meet was Georges Delerue, and I wish I did. And I just started kind of doing interviews. And when I moved to LA, which was always the goal, I wanted to start out in New York and kind of get my feet wet. But obviously you want to end up in LA. And basically, when I kind of slipped into temping, I was like writing for a wonderful magazine called Venice Magazine. Beautiful. I was interviewing like people like Liam Neeson. I was doing actor and all these kind of interviews, but I always make sure to have a composer piece in like every issue. I had talked to James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith. I did the only, ironically, I did the only interview he ever did in Basic Instinct. And when I went to his house, it's like, you can just hit me with a bus now. He was my idol.
Yeah.
Logan's Run changed my life. And again, it's ironic because Free Enterprise, that's kind of the theme of Free Enterprise, is Logan's Run. And that really just changed my life. I mean, got me into music, got me into movies, everything. And basically I just started doing liner notes, the booklets, when you get soundtracks. Two of the first I ever did through a wonderful, dearly missed woman named Beth Krakauer, who wrote for Milan. I did the liner notes for the first Stargate movie when it came out. I did like the first kind of double header of Outland and Capricorn 1, The Hitcher. And now I've probably done like over 120 liner note booklets, like in decades of doing this stuff. And I just love film music. And my wife is a composer, a very talented composer named Penka Kuneva. She scored the movie that's now Bulgaria's official Oscar submission, did a really cool score called Applewood House of Mystery that Dragon's Domain put out. But I just love music, and I have no talent whatsoever. I mean, I can barely play the score from Jaws until like, that is the level of my musical talent, which is none, zero, -5. But the whole thing is that I know how music works. And, when you temp track stuff, it's like you have to be able to segue. You have to know what music is going to work in something. And I just kind of got into this whole thing as I was doing booklets, as I was doing interviews. And I met, again, most of the composers, like the two coolest things I have ever worked on are Star Trek First Contact and Generations. Temp tracking those and getting to go to the score. I mean, oh my God, dude. So I've been doing this again when the whole directing thing sadly fell apart. When I go back to that in 1 second, if I could, I've been doing temps for 31 years. So I've worked on a ton of stuff, all while doing the booklets, all while doing interviews. So really, it's the kind of next evolution is doing, obviously what you guys are doing. Video casts and websites. And also one thing I love doing, especially through Daniel Griffin, and is doing video segments for 4Ks and Blu-rays.
Yeah.
And I've done stuff like The Bounty and The Straight Story. unlawful entry, just a ton of this stuff. And where it's just me yakking on about film music and what the composers did. And actually today, what's really cool, like they announced it, but I did a whole thing, Severin is putting out this amazing box set of essentially the first 4 Emmanuel movies. So there is I did a segment on the music of the Emmanuel movies, and I guarantee you it'll turn the fuck off. It just literally, you are so turned on by Sylvia Crystal, and then I come on and
you gotta keep all the perverts in check then.
I know, dude. It's just like you think you're getting hot, and then you see my face. Holy Jesus, it's over. But again, it's just amazing, to be able to. Again, I just my shtick. There's some people who are amazing liner note writers who are very technically can really just, it's so hard writing about music in the first place. But, again, it's like I just try to talk about music in a way that, people like myself could understand. It's the same approach to the job, is just talking about what is the music trying to do as opposed to an A clef, which is something I think you get with tomato sauce. Or an arpeggio. Okay, where does the guy live in Brooklyn? That kind of stuff. I have, again, it's just talking about what music does and how it works in a film, and how it inspires. Because again, to me, the great thing about film music, ever since I was play acting to the soundtrack of Blue Thunder as a kid, okay, I was woo, spaceships and again, is that, and everyone does this, is that music in itself inspires the imagination. Pure music makes you dream. It makes you create stories, which has always been where my love of kind of program music comes from. And I love rock and roll, a lot of stuff, but again, that's kind of where my particular love for instrumental music comes from. All styles of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I would be remiss to not talk about Bubba Ho-Tep for a second here, because you play a role in it. You get to play one of the hearse drivers, and Don Cascarelli's classic. We love this movie so much.
Oh my God! Well, dude, who isn't a Phantasm freak? Again, I'll never forget seeing it for the first time cut when I was living in San Francisco for about a year. My dad managed the Fairmont. And, I saw it cut, but then they did this amazing doubleheader of Phantasm in the Fog, two of the great
shit, yeah.
And then I finally got to see Phantasm uncut. And then, when I had my own little movie club when I was a senior in high school, and guess what I showed? And you could just see the face of the teacher supervisor in the first 2 minutes of that, going, "Oh boy," But thankfully, I didn't get kicked out. But obviously, I love it. It's one of the most brilliant horror films ever made. And the great thing about working at Full Moon, again, you meet all these kind of idols that you've had as a child, and these are the coolest people ever. Stuart Gordon. And I finally, I wrote, when I was writing for Fangoria, I wrote a legit good review of Phantasm 3, which I really liked. And suddenly I get a call from Don Coscarelli, who I didn't know. And it's like, hey, you want to go to Musso and Frank's with me and Angus Scrim? And I'm like, I don't think so. Fuck that. So met Don, and he's just an amazing guy. And again, it's like the family. It's like a family of people who just love Don, and just a family of great people. And I actually helped Don temp Phantasm 4 and all that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of helping him. And then it's like, hey, you want to be in Bubba Ho-Top? And I'm like, fuck yeah, so Dan Roebuck was actually one of the first actors that I met when I got out here. And the first thing we ever did together was go to a screening of the Tom Savini Night of the Living Dead. And, Dan's just always been a friend. He's totally into all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the biggest River's Edge fan in the known universe when I was really maladjusted and having severe woman problems. And he couldn't be more different than the character. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And so basically, the chance to, be in something with Dan was just an amazing opportunity. And then, on top of it, just to be there while they were shooting this in this insane nursing home, which has since burned down. And it's like you go into this room and there are these cabinets that haven't been opened in 40 years with World War II letters. It was just really creepy and amazing. You did not want to go to the bathroom there. And then basically, then I started temp tracking Bubba Ho-Top, and then I said, let's put in some 6-string samurai, and then we got Brian Tyler to score the movie. And this is kind of at the beginning of Brian Tyler's career, which is now past the stratosphere towards Neptune.
Yeah.
And Brian is just a big old super geek fan of this stuff as well. And he would score John Dice at the end, and I'm like the goofball sitting in the restaurant in the whole scene between Paul Giamatti and Chase. We tried to, Don's kept trying to keep a Bubba Ho-Tep sequel alive. Paul Giamatti was been trying to make it happen. I'd love to somehow see it happen.
Yeah.
But again, Don is the best, and the chance to be in a cult movie like this is just amazing. And I just wish that I turned my back on that record cover that just came out from Waxworks. It's like, oh my God, that's my back. Maybe I should have turned the camera more when we were shooting it, but that was like my first real, like acting in an actual movie. I'd actually gotten my SAG card, being Taft-Hartley doing television commercial. And I've done a bunch of stuff, since then. I'm a free enterprise where I play myself because they couldn't find anyone else to play me, as me. Again, it's kind of like a reunion to me and Bob. And I've done a bunch of other stuff. And I'm still out there. I did one of those vertical shorts, which is crazy. Still out there, still auditioning, man. So you went like a homicidal geek maniac. I'm your man.
Well, since you worked on the music of Bubba Ho-Top, it was one question. We covered this movie again this year too. Like,
sure.
We're just covering all your movies on the show, apparently.
Oh my God.
Was there ever talk of putting an actual Elvis track in the movie?
Oh, no, I don't think they could have afforded it.
Yeah.
They had like a sound alike. I don't think they could have remotely made that happen because of how Elvis is portrayed and just the music rights. This was like a low budget movie. But again, they, like during the whole, Elvis on stage thing, Brian did a pretty amazing job riffing on Elvis. And then there's like the little movie, like where he's watching the movie, like the reruns on television. He did a great kind of Elvis thing there. And Brian does like all the vocals on that too.
Oh, wow.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
okay.
that's Brian.
Wow.
And again, just to get him at this time in his career, now he does all the Fast and the Furious movies. But again, it's a great movie. It really is a great movie, especially as I grow into ending up in the nursing home. I will not end up in shitty rest. But it really holds up. I love going to the reunions, and then I got to do, obviously the Phantasm film that Dave Hartman directed, which, that took like 5 years to get done. And like you can see over there, he did that original piece of art with how I end up in the movie. But again, to do the whole scene with Reggie in the beginning of Phantasm Ravager. Ironically, it's the only clip they released of the film, is the whole scene with me and Reggie in the car. God, to be in the desert in my underwear at 100 degrees and to get bald, it doesn't get better. Oh my God, dude. It doesn't get better than to get killed by a spear in a Phantasm movie.
Oh my God. Well, that's incredible. And I'm going to get things to our last question. I have a feeling you might have already answered this question for us.
Sure.
But we'll see. So, Daniel, if you're going to program your perfect double feature, you're going to get a bunch of friends, family together, you rented out the theater for the night. What are 2 movies that you're going to program back to back as saying, hey, this is me. This is my double feature?
God. Jesus Christ. Superman and Blade Runner. Although the best movie I've ever seen in my life is Birdie. That is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. And Last Temptation is right up there as well, although I'm Jewish. Yeah. Man, dude, it's like Superman. Blade Runner, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Repo Man. You only Honor Matches Secret Service, Spy Who Loved Me. I'm a creature of the 70s and the 80s. That's kind of when I grew up. Capricorn 1 would be up there. I couldn't pick a double feature, man. I could pick like 100 features.
All-nighter.
That's cool, yeah. Programming all-nighter. That's awesome.
All-nighter, yeah. You said the fog
Yeah.
and
Bubba-
Phantasm together earlier, and I'm like,
Oh, dude, I mean,
that's a
for
perfect
Yeah, that's
double
a-
feature
that's a
too.
great double
So
feature.
There's
all-nighter.
Scanners
Yeah.
and Escape from New York.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all the great AFCO Embassy double features that were happening at the time. Excalibur would be in there somewhere. I mean, God, I don't even know where to begin.
Well,
You know.
just park our butts in the theater for that, and we'll be there for all 30 of them. So, Daniel, thank you for joining us. Thank you for chatting with us. This has been excellent. If people want to find your work, where can they find you online?
They can find me online at OnTheScore, OnTheScore.com, or you can watch my video casts I do with composers about once or twice a month. It's called Film Music Live, just Film Music Live Daniel Schweiger on YouTube. And again, if you are an arcade fan, the video story is not over, and it's going to be even cooler. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Daniel. We had a blast.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.